fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of First Stars Podcast, fourth season. I'm our loyal listeners. Thank you for continued support. This is an amazing episode because Jimmy Palmiotti and Dave Johnson board the mothership to discuss Pop Kill from Mad Cave Studios. Now, come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Palmiotti. Hello, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for coming to First Stars Podcast.
Hey, good to see you, Jeff. How's it going, man?
It's going very well. I got thrown off for a minute because I usually hear recording like from when I hit record, but now because we're recording the other thing, it didn't say it. So I was a little thrown off for a second. But I was like, but we are recording. I'm looking at it.
We are. That's all that matters, that we are. So
That is exactly that's all that matters here. But yeah, it's an honor to have both of you on the show. A big fan. Thank you so much for coming. I always start off with a question of inspiration. What inspired your love for comics and who are your earliest influences?
You want to start off, Jimmy?
No, Dave, you got the screen. Go for it.
Earliest influences, I would have to say John Byrne and Mike Golden more, because I was buying Micronauts toys as a kid, and I discovered that Marvel was making a comic book, and I think I got like issue 3 or 4, and I just started buying comics like wholeheartedly at that point. So, and I was always following artists more than characters, so if an artist left a book, then I was pretty much done with the book until a new artist came along that I liked. So how about you, Jimmy?
I think my early, because I had 2 older brothers, and so I was reading whatever they left around the house. So there was Archie's, there was Superman, there was Fantastic Four, and I remember getting like a big run of Fantastic Four in a row. That's probably like the first thing, and it was like probably issue like 48 to like 75 of Fantastic Four. Back then, no comic shop, so it was all newsstand, so it was random when you got it. But
yeah, I remember.
But I really loved it. I was just, it was a little bit after where I started noticing who wrote things and who was drawing things and why I didn't like a certain issue, because I was like, this doesn't look like the Thing. Who did this? And so it was like, so it was probably in the early 70s when I started picking up I remember buying the studio book, and it had Barry Smith, Bernie Wrightson, Jeff Jones, Mike Kaluta, and then following everything those guys did. So I grew up with a healthy diet of The Shadow, Swamp Thing, and Conan back then. And those were pretty much big influences for me.
Yeah, I discovered underground books in my local bookstore, and they would have these underground books like in a box underneath all the other stuff. And man, that blew me away. Like guys like Corbin and all those dudes. And I felt like I was reading something I shouldn't be allowed to read, and it really affected me, in a great way. That and the early heavy metals.
Yeah, heavy metal was a big thing for me. Also, I had a lot of Playboys around the house, so little Annie Fanny, anything that was in there. I always liked the sexy aspect of comics, and it would give you that once in a blue moon, way back then. And the undergrounds were perfect for that. Between Corbin and Crumb and all that kind of stuff, it felt like you were getting away with something. Like when those comics were in your hands, you felt like, I'm like, I shouldn't have this. I'm going to protect this.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty cool when you mentioned Bernie Wrightson, because Bernie Wrightson was one of his most amazing artists I think I've ever seen. And he actually was my very first autograph. So I have a huge autograph collection now. My first one ever was Bernie Wrightson up in Toronto, and that's one of the coolest things almost I've had.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I was a fan of his forever, and then I remember I was in senior high school. They had Bernie Wrightson had a little show in a comic gallery, and I went in there and I stayed there the whole show. And I mean, the room was the size of a closet. I never left until the last guy left, and then Bernie was in. And I went over with a pad of paper, and I'm like, okay, can you tell me what pens and brushes you use? And I had him write everything down, and he was so patient with me. And then I went to the art store and realized these brushes are expensive, but I wanted the keys to how am I going to draw like Bernie Wrightson, which is of course a joke. But anyway, and it wasn't until like years later I got to work with him, and we became friends, and just a great guy. Really bummed he's not with us, because a guy like that should have lived till he was like 100. He just had he had so much more art to do, and he was so much fun to hang out with. He was just a sweet guy.
I don't think there's ever gonna be another artist that puts that much detail in his work ever again, the way he would put so much detail in every single panel that he drew.
I
Well,
think
there's a guy named Cagle who's trying to do like that Franklin Booth scratch board. He's done some Batman covers. Evan Cagle. He's trying, but I mean, Bernie just took it. I think he perfected it and
Hmm.
really brought that Franklin Booth style to comics.
yeah.
It just blew everybody away. So
That Frankenstein book, like you can't touch it. Like it's sort of like you look at it and it's like looking into the sun. Like
yeah,
that's like you can't do better than this. This is it. This is the best that this is ever gonna look. Move on to something else. Leave Frankenstein alone. Bernie just, Bernie broke the bridge. Nobody can cross that bridge to do that book again.
I
Hmm.
mean, amongst some of my artist friends, we always wondered if he put so much into that it kind of burned him out. It's like, was he able to come even close to that? After that, it almost like it's like,
He wasn't able to. He
yeah,
was
it was crazy.
he was
It's
great.
like,
He was great, but he started doing breakdowns a lot. When I
yeah,
inked them, there were breakdowns. They were loose breakdowns. And imagine inking Bernie Wrightson where he doesn't put the shadows
oh,
in. And that's what I had to ink when I was doing the Punisher book, because he didn't put any shadows. He just drew these outlines. And I was like, Bernie, you forgot the shadows over. And he's like, nah, you figure it out, Jimmy. You figure it out. And I'm
oh,
like,
man. Yeah,
no.
I would have not wanted to do that.
No,
That
it was not.
freaked
It
me
was not
out.
the greatest gig, but I was just happy to be with him. So.
Yeah, true, true.
So you guys being great comic book people in your own right, what made you want to work with each other? I mean, I know that came out the best way to phrase the question, but what made you guys want to work together?
Well,
Dave's a good kisser. So,
yeah.
wait, go ahead. Sorry, with Dave.
Well, I mean, I've been long before we even started writing Popkill. I had the story in my head for many years, and then when I actually sat down to do it, I got it about, I don't know, like 60%, and I realized, I've never really written a comic before, and you know I like to partner with people, and I called up Jimmy and I said, hey, do you want to help me finish this off and come up with something? And me and Jimmy have known each other for quite a long time, and he jumped on board, and we knocked it out.
Yeah, I mean, Dave had this great idea. It was ridiculous. It was wonderfully ridiculous, and so we just needed to figure out the structure and how we would break it down into issues and everything. And I'm pretty good at that. But Dave literally walked in with the beast of an idea that I think I said this to him. I'm like, I don't know who's going to buy this, but let's make this so much fun that you can't not want to read it. And I think there's a certain kind of freedom in that, Jeff, where we were just like, let's just do whatever we whatever we
Yeah.
want, and then see if it sticks. And we did. I mean, it was, and plus, the best thing in comics is working with your buddies. And Dave and I hang out, and every time we see each other, we see each other, we hang out, we go to dinner, we always have fun. So imagine doing that, but writing a comic too, and that's pretty much what we did. And then finding the right artist for it, which I think Juan was such a great choice for it, because he just nobody saw it coming with him. He just kind of went in and created that world so beautifully. But it was definitely one of Dave's crazier ideas. And Dave, don't get me wrong, Dave hits me with a crazy idea every couple of weeks. But but this
Yeah,
one was like, what?
ideas I've got. It's finishing them. That's the problem. So that's why I was so thankful that Jimmy agreed to come on board, and we actually got it done. Jimmy is he gets stuff done. He gets shit done, and that's one of my just biggest flaws within me is I don't get shit done. So it was a perfect combo between us. So
Yeah, we had a mutual friend. Dave and I had a mutual friend, Darwin Cook, and Darwin used to come over my house every, I don't know, 3 days. He's always bring coffee for Amanda, and he'd sit on my deck and smoke and hang out and drink, and he would talk to me about stories all the time. I want to do this story, I want to do that story. And when he passed away, it really put like a bee in my bonnet to like, it's great to talk about things, but it's even better to finish them, right? Because we have Darwin's not with us, and I have, like in my head I have like 20 stories he was pitching to me like all the time, and I'm like, these are great, you should do it. And he never got to do it. So when I'm working on things now, I have it in my head, I'm like, I really need to get it done. We can get it done. That's where my energy goes, in getting the job done. And that's where Kickstarter, for me, was a perfect thing, because I can actually not only get it done, I can actually put it out. But in the case of Pop Kill, we kind of just went crazy and wrote the book.
Well, should we talk about how it came to a Kickstarter, or should we keep that under wraps?
It's a roundabout story where we won't name names. How's that? Yeah. Okay, so when Dave came to me with the idea, I said, let's go out there and see if we can get somebody to buy this, like, so we can fund it, right? And what happened was we found a company that said, okay, here's the money, you guys make this book. And we did. And it took us a year to do it. It took us a full year to do it, because every issue is like 30 something pages. Each issue is a big fat book, right? And what happened was the publisher sat on it for a year, or maybe a year and a half, I think, right, Dave? Like,
no, it wasn't done yet. The colorist was working on the last issue.
Right. The coloring.
There was a regime change in the company, and they decided that they wanted to pursue a more, I guess, G-rated publishing brand, and we no longer fit into that G-rated.
No, because our book has nudity, and it has, violence, excessive violence, and language. So they said, hey, you guys want to buy it back? And we're like, well, we're poor. We can't.
Yeah.
we can't afford to buy it back. But they made us a great deal, and we kind of worked out a deal with them. And then we decided to let's see if we can kickstart this, and we did. We did 3 successful Kickstarters with the project. And, even though it was a very limited and focused audience when we did it, it was very successful. And then we talked about, well, how do we get this out there so more people can finally read it? And enter Mad Cave and, those guys. So it has a wild history. I mean, look, if this thing ever gets made into anything like a movie or TV show, it's definitely a good book to write how crazy this book was to do.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes comics are meant to just be comics, and this one we wrote simply as like, let's go as crazy as we can. Let's have fun with this, and let's not worry about what anybody's going to do later on with it. Let's just deliver the goods. And that's what we do with Pop Kill.
I'm still a little sad. The one note that we had from the original publisher was the twins. Yeah. There's 2 characters in it that own each of the cola companies, and my original idea was they were Siamese twins connected at the spine, and they could never face each other, but they hated each other, and they were constantly trying to do each other in, even though they were literally connected, physically. And the original publisher was like, that's too far.
It's too far. Yeah.
So,
one day, Dave, we'll revisit it and put
it back in. Well, he was right. I mean, that would have been a nightmare to draw, and if it was ever made into a film, that would have been a nightmare. But I just thought it was just a hilarious idea. But, everything worked out the way it's supposed to work out. So, it's been a good process so far.
So to catch up to the listeners who may not know, the book you're both working on is called Pop Kill, which is sort of I don't know the right word, a satire of the old 80s cola wars that took on between Pepsi and Coke, and but kind of blown up into these absurd proportions, where it's not just for dollars and commercials. You actually have assassins, murder plots, espionage. I mean, it goes crazy. So you said the two conjoined twins are the people who lead both
Brothers.
organizations. From
Yeah.
whose perspective is the story being told by?
Well, it actually is kind of it's kind of like we're kind of godlike in the fact that we kind of jump a little bit from place to place. We're telling the story, but most of it focuses on John Pyle, who's hired by the Fizz One Cola Company, and then the other part is told about Dina Deluxe, who's from she's in the Fizz division of Popsico Cola, right?
Which I had to make up.
Yeah, Dave came up with these great names. But the two of them are like, it's about how these two meet, and the John Pyle character is kind of working Dina until things start happening, and then we created this crazy world of competing soda companies. Yes, we're assassins and killers and all that. I'm not so sure it's that crazy, and I'm not so sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
in some sense. But definitely we've taken it a little bit crazier and further. And, our John Pyle is like our oversexed James Bond. And Dina's like the crazy scientist that kind of like is up for anything kind of thing. And how these two characters connect and kind of, and the stuff that goes on between the competing companies and the competing brothers is the core of the story. And we do follow Dina and John through the story. But we're also seeing the crazy world that these guys live in. Like for soda companies, you would not think that they're so insane. And being a guy that worked for Pepsi Cola for like 8 years when I was in advertising, they are insane. They're not quite murderous insane, but they definitely are crazy. I was working at Pepsi when Michael Jackson's hair went on fire, if you can remember way back when. But this was sort of like, writing this with Dave was sort of like it was kind of easy because we would try to make each other laugh while we were writing it, but at the same time, these both characters have a great story arc that goes from the first issue to the last issue, and I think the book, besides visually, I think the book delivers story wise something that the readers are going to be totally entrenched in. And again, they're not 20-page comics; they're in the 30 something pages plus, so they're. By the time you get all 4 of these books, it's a fun, crazy long read,
So I think it's kind of interesting. So obviously the two guys in charge are motivated by different things, money, I assume, jealousy.
Hate each other. They hate each other.
Now, is it just because I can't remember the exact same, but basically it's the people like the best is who you hate the most kind of thing because you know each other.
Yeah.
Is it just from being stuck with each other for as many years as they learned to hate each other, or did something else happen that kind of triggered this deep hatred?
Dave, you want to answer that one?
I don't think we ever really got too deep into why they hate each other. It just, to me, it was more of a vehicle to just, it seems ridiculous. Well, I can imagine two twins hating each other just from having to, live their whole lives together in that way. But the fact that they were connected, and we changed it to where they were connected at the shoulder, so they're each missing an arm,
right?
And then they were separated. So I don't think we ever got too deep into why they hate each other. It's just, it's like brother and brother hating each other. I mean,
yeah, they both have the same business, so they're both competing.
Yeah.
And the competition definitely drove them crazy. I mean, they could have merged and made one big soda company, but they wanted to do better than the other one. And I got to think it goes back to their parents, because we like to blame parents for everything.
Yeah. They ended up buying two skyscrapers that faced each other, and they would make notes and put up signs, so each one could read and get more angry at each other over that. So we had a good time with those two.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of that commercial with the Twix, the left Twix and the right Twix, and how they're pretty much the same thing, but yet they have this deep hatred for they're enemies against each other.
Exactly.
These conjoined twins and how they're running their company and how their personalities are. How similar are they? I mean, would they be willing to admit how similar they truly are to one another?
I don't think they would ever admit it. I don't think they even being in the same room. well, if you read the story, I don't want to ruin the story, but they hate each other till the end. You know, they hate each other, and I just think they're pretty much the same guy. They
Yep.
just have the ego part. Is just that they can't work with anybody. And you see it in the story because as John is being hired, it's almost like he's being blackmailed. And as Dean is being hired, it's almost like they don't really give a crap other than what she created. So they're so self-absorbed in their own worlds. But that's also the fun of the book, is how predictably insane they are and how far they'll go. And what they put Dina and John through is the basis of the series in a way.
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing too is though the war between these two corporations is not going to just stay among themselves. It's going to explode to everyone around them. How much do they care about the collateral damage that's going to be caused by this hatred of each other?
It depends. If the collateral damage is aimed away from them, they don't care. If it's on themselves, obviously. I mean, Dina was part of the Fizz division, which part of her thing was she created something that at Popso that Fizz Cola wanted, and so the brothers stopped at nothing to try to get it, and I don't think the collateral damage was any. I sort of like take the two biggest billionaires in the world and imagine them, like radio controlling buildings, fighting with each other. I don't think they care.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's just that they just want what they want and they want to win. And I think that's, and get into the brain of somebody that has everything they ever wanted, it starts to get twisted up there. And we see it happening in real life right now.
Well,
with
yeah.
billionaires,
Yeah.
You
Look at Elon Musk and what a bath he took buying Twitter, but at the same time, was it, financial? I mean, he got what he wanted. He got access to media and that was his main goal, and he didn't care what it took to get it. So
I don't think he's not losing any sleep over collateral damage. That's for sure.
No.
Firing 1,000 people or whatever it was, I don't think he lost his sleep the next day.
No, absolutely not. So, yeah.
So the other thing we were thinking about, the two owners of these corporations, obviously they both kind of are bad people. They sound like bad people. Who is the audience surrogate? Who is the one that the audience is rooting for to be successful in this comic book?
Oh no, the audience is rooting for Dina and John. Whole time. They're not rooting for the owners. Believe me, they're being manipulated by the owners. Nobody's saying one guy's manipulating more than the other. But the reader understands that the fallout is happening, and our two main characters, John and Dina, are the ones that we're trying to get out of the fallout safely. So we're rooting for them. We're not rooting for any company specifically. There's little things in there that we kind of care about certain things, but it's definitely Dina and John that are the basis, the core of our story. They are the two regular people that are stuck in something bigger than them, trying to get out alive.
I mean, that's what Jimmy brought to the story. He brought the love angle to the story that I didn't originally have. He brought heart to it. My original idea was just mainly the core of the background story, but Jimmy brought the characters to the story. So that's what Jimmy does. He does great. He's really good at that. And I think it showed.
Yeah. I mean, we need to care about them, right, in order to follow their journey. And they're both people that are just alone, and it's apparent in their conversation when they talk to each other how in their own heads they are. and as the story unfolds, while you get to the third and fourth issue, you start to see where they start to click together. And that's another fun part of the story. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously there's money involved for the two twins. What's in it for John and Dina? Like, other than, I mean, obviously, I guess they're getting some money out of it. Like, how invested are they in this outcome?
Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think, the way I always looked at the story, Dina was just, she was just an employee. She had a really good idea that would make soda fizzier 50% longer, which would be a huge marketing, game changer. And John was just work for hire, and I mean there were other motivations why he took on that gig. But ultimately I think he figures out, hey, if this is such a great idea, we could take it to a third company, and we could both be rich at that point. I mean, I think he's a little bit more motivated for money, since he is kind of a contract saboteur. Technically he's kind of a bad guy if
Yeah.
you think about it. And but after he meets her, he starts to like her, he starts to fall for her. But ultimately at that point it's already too late. Both companies now know that they're in the wind, and the first company still wants that to go away, because they would rather, if they don't have that formula, that they would rather nobody have it. And the other side obviously wants that formula, but they would rather kill both of them than to let them go either to the other side or a third company. So I think that's where the shit really hits the fan. So
Yeah, Jeff, when you meet John in the first book, he's a soldier in a way, right? He's doing what he set out to do. And if you read his dialogue is he's all about him. Everything's about him. If he flirts, it's for a reason, to get something out for him. Everything he says and does is to manipulate everyone around him to what he wants. And as he meets Dina, like the guard starts to come down for him, and he starts to realize pretty much how shallow a lot of his life is. And she's making him see that way, because he's not seeing himself in her. He's seeing a better person. And she's asking him, in a way, as they're together, to step up and be the better person. So there's a lot of back and forth and character study with them, because the way, if you read issue 1 and then you read issue 4, John almost speaks differently in it. And it's like the power of love, right? The power of, I'm not all about myself anymore. I'm actually thinking about somebody else, and I'm going to change a little bit to it. Not totally, because he's still got what he's been alive long enough that he knows what works for him is what he's sticking with. But he's actually bending his own rules a little bit to make this story happen. And I think by the end of the 4th issue, I see this is so easy a book to do another book of, where there's more adventures of them. I'm not so sure it would be called Pop Kill. It might be called whatever the next adventure is, but it might be competing couch factories. I have no idea.
So when, I mean, it does open up the big question always with wealth. Is there ever enough? Like, is there a point where there's ever a sense of, either with John or the two corporate owners, where it's like, I am comfortable, I have enough money now, I am good?
I mean, that's the epiphany of old age, where you sit there and go, I have enough stuff. I have enough, maybe I have enough money, or I'm thinking, it takes a long time for people to get there, because the basis of the United States of America is to make more money, make money, make money, make money. The reality is, I remember I was reading an interview with the owner of Arizona Iced Tea, and people were asking him why are the big cans are still only 99 cents, and he says, well, I make millions of dollars. Everyone that works for me makes money. Everyone is paid for. And he goes, and they say, so I'm not raising prices. I haven't ever, because realistically, I have enough. I don't need any more. All my people are paid for. So why should I try to get more money out of people just because I can? And he says, that's why there's still 99 cents for the large cans. And I thought, what a smart thing, and what an epiphany. And man, I don't know how people get to that, because a lot of people don't get to that. We look at the government, we look at politicians, we look at billionaires, and man, we see so much greed and so much screwed up headspace. And I think it just corrupts people. I think money and power corrupt people. And
I think it becomes a game at that point. Like, they want to be number one on the Forbes scale, the Forbes list of the richest. But yeah, do you, once you, I think, I've said it before and joking, I've heard other people say it. I think, when you get to a certain level, like let's just say, $500 million, you should get a trophy saying you beat capitalism, and then everything else should just go to something to help humanity. I mean, I don't understand the wealth accumulation and hoarding that occurs, because it's like you're never going to be able to spend all that.
Right.
Do something with it, and not just buy elections.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be like famous and all that stuff, be famous for creating 10,000 parks in the United States and name them after yourself. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like, do something positive. Build housing for poor people and name it after yourself. Who cares?
Yeah.
But it's hard for regular people to understand how much $1 billion is. Like, you couldn't this. And honestly, I'm sitting here and if somebody said to me, you need to spend $1 billion, I'd be like, oh, I got a car, I guess I'll get a new car. Like, I don't know how many things I can spend it on. I don't know, like, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna invite all my friends on a private jet and go on a vacation. Like, after all the silly crazy things, you realize that, oh, I guess maybe helping people might be good for my brain at this point.
You don't need a 50-room mansion. I mean,
yeah, no, I definitely need a bathroom down. I definitely need another bathroom in this house, and that's about it.
Well, you can do that with a bucket, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, that's why I keep paper towels right here, Dave. If I'm writing something really good, I can just.
Oh, we know what those paper towels are really for, Jimmy.
I could poop in a bucket. You said I could say shit in the bucket, right?
Yeah,
I can shit in the bucket. I have the bucket right here, and so I can keep that run-on sentence going.
So, how crazy is this book gonna get?
How crazy? Well, did you see the covers for the first issue that Man Cave did?
Yeah.
So we got Dan Panosian, who's a good buddy of ours, and one of Dave's best friends. We got my wife Amanda. We got Dave on the covers, and then we have a bagged explicit cover by Brian Stelfreeze. That all I'll say is, if you can order it now, order it, because once it comes out and people open it, it's going to be a mad rush to buy all the ones that hasn't sold yet, and nobody's going to get it. Yeah, I'm telling you, like, collectors are going to go running after this cover. It's the best use of a bottle and cushions I've seen in a long time.
No, I think we got some really good variant covers coming up, and I think it's just a good looking quality book. I mean, there's a lot of crap books out there, but I can honestly say, because I didn't draw it, I think we came off with a really good looking quality book.
Inside the book looks fantastic, and that's half the battle, right? You can put all the great covers you want on a comic, but if the inside doesn't look great, why buy it? And this is a book where I could say the inside looks amazing. Juan Santa Cruz does a beautiful job creating this world that we're in, and again, not a lazy bone in his body. At every drawing, the cities and the things blowing up and the characters, we kill off a lot of people in this book. There's a little sex and nudity going on in it, and there's a little bit. It's an adult comic, but I think people can have a lot of fun, and I'm really excited that Mad Cave is putting this out, because they're letting Dave and I pretty much go and pick the cover artists and that kind of stuff. So we still have control of something, even though somebody else is putting it out, which is nice for a change.
By the way, the colorist was Brian Reber.
Brian Reber, of course. Sorry, Brian. Brian, amazing job he did with Juan. Great colors.
When can our listeners get their hands on the first issue?
That's a good question. When is I'm not so sure when it was solicited, to be honest with you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think it was just solicited not too long ago. So maybe in another couple of months or something. Isn't it like 4 months out or
3? Usually 3.
Yeah.
Maybe February or March, Jeff. Maybe you can check on that, because that's definitely we need the company person on our side, because we're the creators. We don't know when we just see something in the store and go, there it is.
We'll put it in the show notes. If you're watching the episode, the show notes, I'll put in the release date.
Yeah, I would definitely, if you're gonna pick this up, and you should, you definitely want to get the Brian Stelfreeze cover. I'm just gonna, for the collectors out there, that's gonna be the one that I think they're gonna be running for, even though the other ones are all beautiful. I want to put every one of them on a T-shirt, Dave. I just feel it's like a whole T. The Pop Kill covers should be a gigantic T-shirt line. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, with those print on demand T-shirt companies now.
Yeah, we can do that, right?
Yeah,
Pop Kill.
totally.
And all the hosts get a free T-shirt, I imagine.
Only Jeff does. Unless somebody else has this on the show. Only Jeff gets it.
Well, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Palmiotti, it was an absolute honor to have you on the show. When I get the release date, I'll put that in the notes. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You guys are fantastic.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having us. And it's a good way to start a Monday or end a Monday.
Indeed. Have a very good night, sirs.
All right, buddy. You take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Verta Stars podcast. Please like and subscribe. Return for the next episode when Elliot Kalin boards the mothership to discuss Harley Quinn from DC Comics. To next voyage, travel on.